Toxic people don't just argue. They drain your clarity, twist your words, and make you feel like you're the one losing control. You walk into a conversation with facts, with calm, maybe even with hope. But somehow you walk out doubting your own reality. Why? Because the wrong words said to the wrong person can become weapons used against you. That's why in today's video, we're not just talking about toxic behavior. We're going deeper into the exact phrases that give toxic people power over your mind, your energy, and your voice. You might think you're keeping the peace by saying things like, "I'm sorry, it's all my fault," or "I just want you to be happy." But the truth is, those words, when given to someone manipulative, don't resolve conflict. They reinforce control. They teach the other person how to dominate the dynamic without looking like the aggressor. And if you've ever found yourself exhausted after a simple conversation or walking away more confused than when you started, this is the video you need. We're going to break down the 7 things you should never say to toxic people and explain why each one quietly hands over your emotional power. If you're tired of being misunderstood, blamed, or emotionally baited, this is for you. And if any part of this resonates, leave a comment with your experience. You're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe, because protecting your peace is not a one-time thing. It's a practice, and we do it together. 1. You always or you never. The trap of absolutes. I once watched a friend lose an argument the moment he tried to win it. It was nothing unusual, just a typical conflict between 2 brothers. One had a habit of ignoring the other's boundaries. After a long pause, frustration boiled over, and he finally snapped, "You never listened to me." In that instant, the entire conversation shifted. Not toward healing, not toward understanding, but toward technical defense. The brother didn't respond to the pain behind the words. Instead, he said, "That's not true. I listened to you last week when you talked about your job." It became a grammar dispute. 1 sentence, 5 words, and suddenly the core issue vanished under a pile of petty proof and emotional deflection. And this is exactly what toxic people are built for. Toxic individuals thrive on emotional confusion and communication traps. They know how to reframe the conversation to protect their ego. When you use absolutes like always or never, you're not just expressing frustration. You're leaving an opening, a loophole they can twist to avoid responsibility. They don't hear the emotion behind your words. They hear an opportunity to counter, to spin, to prove that you're exaggerating. They'll dig into the past to find one time they did what you say they never do. "Remember when I brought you lunch? Didn't I help you move last year?" And now, instead of addressing the disrespect that happened yesterday, you're stuck defending your phrasing. The focus is no longer on their behavior. It's your accuracy. That's how you lose energy and clarity in toxic conversations. You're not being heard. You're being dissected. And because toxic people don't seek resolution, they seek control. The more you argue the wording, the more they win. These psychological manipulation signs are subtle but consistent. They use your emotional language as a tool for diversion. By challenging the wording, they create emotional self-defense for themselves and emotional self-doubt for you. You begin to question, did I overreact? Was I being dramatic? Maybe I was unfair. But these doubts don't come from clarity. They come from a design tactic, one meant to destabilize and reframe. The trap of absolutes is so powerful because it lures even good, thoughtful people into a reaction-based mindset. You speak from hurt, they respond with loopholes, and suddenly you're defending your emotional truth like it's on trial. It's exhausting, and more importantly, it's unnecessary. The Stoic way to deal with toxic people isn't through louder words or more intense explanations, it's through precision. Not emotional suppression, but emotional discipline. When you anchor your words to specific events rather than exaggerated patterns, you reduce their ability to hijack the moment. Instead of saying, "You never support me," say, "When you didn't show up to my event yesterday, I felt alone." That phrasing shuts down manipulation. It gives no escape route. It defines the issue clearly, quietly, and unshakably. It's not about avoiding emotion, it's about delivering it with focus. There's also an energy aspect to this. People often overlook how much emotional energy gets drained in defensive conversations. Each time you fall into the never and always trap, you offer them your energy to feed on. That's how emotional vampires survive. through the chaos you help create by being too broad, too reactive, too vulnerable in your language. Stoic emotional self-defense begins in the words you choose. Precision becomes your armor. Specificity becomes your shield. And silence, when needed, becomes your reset button. You don't need to win arguments with toxic people. You need to stop giving them the power to shape the direction of the conversation. Your power lies in clarity, in saying what happened, how it made you feel, and what you will or won't tolerate again. That's the path to protecting your peace, not performing in their circus of blame shifting. The conversation may still be difficult, but it won't be confusing. And confusion is their favorite weapon. When you speak with emotional clarity, you protect your energy and set the tone. You no longer invite their gaslighting. You deny them the room to twist your truth. You stay grounded in your experience, and you allow yourself to step out of the emotional chaos they crave. This is not just conversation discipline, it's identity protection. Because the longer you argue with someone committed to misunderstanding you, the more you forget your own voice. Speak less, speak clearly, and never hand them a phrase they can twist into a mirror against you. The truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be accurate. 2. I'll change for you. Surrendering your identity. There was a time in my life when I believed that love required flexibility. Compromise, I told myself, was maturity. So when she said my hair was too long, I cut it. When she called the gym a waste of time, I canceled my membership. When she mocked my closest friends, I stopped calling them. At first, it felt like commitment, like sacrifice in the name of keeping something meaningful alive. But slowly, I wasn't adjusting. I was erasing. I became a quieter, smaller version of myself. And yet, her dissatisfaction remained. That's when the illusion broke. With toxic people, change doesn't resolve conflict, it feeds it. Toxic people don't want a connection, they want control. The moment they realize you're willing to reshape who you are just to avoid tension, they know they have leverage. I'll change for you might sound like devotion, but to the wrong person, it becomes a contract they'll abuse. You're no longer a person with thoughts, preferences, and boundaries. You become a project, one they feel entitled to edit, upgrade, or tear down. The issue isn't the change itself. Growth in relationships is natural, even essential. But change that is driven by fear, guilt, or a desperate need for validation is not growth. It's collapse, and it's dangerous. Once you surrender your identity to keep someone close, you start walking on invisible lines. You censor your laughter, your clothes, and your tone of voice. You no longer express what you love. You filter it. You begin to question what parts of you are acceptable and what parts should stay hidden. And what makes this cycle harder to break is that toxic people will always suggest there's something else that needs work. The standards are unclear, ever shifting, and designed to keep you off balance. Even when you meet one demand, another appears. This isn't a compromise. It's performance. And performers, no matter how well they act, never feel safe when the spotlight is controlled by someone else. When you say, "I'll change for you," you're also sending a silent message to your subconscious that your core self is not enough. Over time, this chips away at your confidence, your peace, and your emotional stability. You no longer know whether the version of you in the mirror is authentic or just a mask stitched together by fear of rejection. The deeper you go into this pattern, the more isolated you feel. Because it's not just your personality being reshaped, it's your entire reality. Your sense of agency, your clarity, your emotional boundaries, gone. All for a relationship that never truly accepts you to begin with. Toxic people often enter your life with charm and intensity. They make you feel special, chosen, and seen. And in that fog of affection, you believe that if you give a little more, compromise a little more, become a little more what they want, then maybe it will all work out. But it never does. Because their approval isn't based on who you are. It's based on how much of yourself you're willing to lose to please them. And every time you offer more, you get less. Less respect, less peace, less truth. Until you find yourself surrounded by silence, performing a life that doesn't feel like your own. There is a cost to changing for someone who doesn't love you as you are. The cost is your inner peace, your energy, your emotional clarity. The cost is waking up one day and realizing you don't recognize the voice in your own head. That's what emotional vampires feed on. Not just your attention or time, but your identity. Your selfhood becomes a currency in a toxic economy, and the return is always emptier than the investment. You were not meant to be molded by guilt or shaped by pressure. You were meant to evolve from truth, not fear. If someone truly values you, they will never ask you to change to become smaller, quieter, or more tolerable. They will not see your boundaries as threats or your individuality as a problem. They will stand beside you, not over you. So the next time you're tempted to say, "I'll change for you," pause. Ask yourself, is this change rooted in love or in fear of being unloved? Because the answer to that question may be the most important act of self-protection you'll ever make. 3. Why can't you just be nice? Begging for basic respect. It's a familiar scene. You're in a group, maybe with friends or coworkers, and someone's clearly being mistreated, mocked, dismissed, talked over. And yet the person on the receiving end doesn't walk away. They lean in, they soften their voice. They ask, "Why can't you just be nice for once?" It sounds like a plea for peace, but underneath, it's an echo of desperation. Asking a toxic person to be kind is like asking a storm to hold its rain. Their nature doesn't change because you asked. It only adapts long enough to confuse you. That's what makes this question so dangerous. It invites performance, not transformation. Toxic people know when they're about to lose control of a situation. They sense when you're pulling away, when your emotional energy starts protecting itself. In those moments, they'll switch tactics. The cruelty stops, the voice softens. They remember your birthday. They give you compliments. And suddenly you question everything. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I should give them another chance. That's not kindness, that's strategy. It's a reset tactic, a way to clear the emotional debt just long enough for you to stay. They don't feel your boundaries as limits. They feel them as threats. So instead of respecting your peace, they perform just enough to disarm you. That's the power of emotional manipulation. It wears a mask of warmth just long enough to keep you from walking away. The problem isn't that you want kindness. Everyone does. It's that asking for it gives away the truth, that you're still emotionally invested in someone who's proven their inability to respect you without being told. When you say, "Why can't you just be nice?" you're revealing that deep down, you believe they could be better if they wanted to be. And that belief becomes the hook. Because toxic people don't thrive on consistent cruelty. They thrive on inconsistency. The up and down emotional ride that keeps you chasing the high of being treated right. They know how to ration affection, how to weaponize silence, how to reward compliance. You become addicted to potential, and hope in the wrong hands is a leash. Respect should never be a negotiation. If someone only treats you well when you plead for it, it's not kindness. It's control. And this is where emotional self-defense becomes vital. Instead of asking for decency, you observe patterns. You stop reacting to isolated sweet moments and start recognizing consistent disrespect. You train your mind to respond with clarity, not emotion. The Stoic mindset doesn't beg for change in others. It notices what is, accepts what is shown, and chooses action accordingly. If kindness disappears when it's not convenient for them, it was never there to begin with. This is also why begging for basic respect is so draining. It keeps you in a loop. You express hurt, they deny it. You explain more. They give a small act of kindness. You feel relief. Then it starts again, and over time you start feeling like the crazy one, the overreactor, the overly emotional person, the one who just expects too much. But all you were ever asking for was the bare minimum, to be treated with decency. That's the trap. Not that you're asking for too much, but that they convinced you even asking is unreasonable. Toxic people don't change because of logic. They shift only when their control is threatened. And when you ask, "Why can't you just be nice?" you're showing that control still works. You're showing that you still care enough to plead, and they'll use that against you again and again. What's even more deceptive is how they flip it back onto you. "I would be nice if you weren't always starting fights. Maybe if you treated me better, I'd treat you better too." Now, not only are you not getting the respect you asked for, you're being blamed for needing it in the first place. So what's the better way? You don't ask, you observe. You don't explain what you deserve. You decide what you'll no longer accept, and then you follow through. No anger, no drama, just emotional clarity. You exit conversations that lack respect. You detach from those who offer false kindness. You protect your peace like it's non-negotiable, because it is. Respect doesn't require a script. Kindness shouldn't come with conditions. And if someone needs to be reminded to treat you like a human being, they were never worthy of being close in the first place. 4. I trust you completely. Blind trust, open door. Have you ever said, I trust you completely, not because the person truly earned it, but because you feared what might happen if you didn't? That kind of trust feels like connection, but in reality it's exposure. It's opening the door to someone's influence before they've shown they can handle the responsibility. In the hands of a healthy person, trust builds slowly. It's tested. It deepens with consistency, not charm. But toxic people don't want to earn trust. They want to fast-track it. And when you offer blind trust early, especially in the name of peace or intimacy, you hand them a powerful tool, the ability to cross boundaries without friction. Toxic people thrive in relationships where trust is given, not measured. They know how to present a version of themselves that appears reliable, sincere, and emotionally safe, just long enough to lower your guard. Once they sense that you've dropped your defenses, their behavior changes. They start taking more emotional space. They push past your comfort zones. They begin asking for things that feel too personal, too soon. Maybe access to your time, your finances, your routines, your thoughts. And when you finally pause and question it, they pull out the card you gave them at the start. But you said you trusted me. That's the problem with full, unconditional trust. It leaves no room for clarity. And when clarity fades, manipulation moves in. Emotional predators don't need to lie well when they know you've already made the decision to believe them no matter what. They can twist facts, retell history, contradict themselves, and still make you feel like you are the one being disloyal for asking questions. Blind trust silences your internal warning system. It teaches you to ignore what you feel because you've already made a verbal commitment to ignore it. You may start to notice red flags, inconsistent stories, subtle lies, boundary pushing, but you don't speak up. You hesitate. You rationalize. You remember your own words. I trust you completely. And you don't want to appear paranoid or insecure. That silence is exactly what toxic people count on. The psychology here is simple but powerful. We associate trust with love, stability, and connection. But toxic people associate trust with access to your energy, your time, your forgiveness. And that access becomes a pattern of emotional invasion. They test how far they can go. They learn your responses. They keep a mental record of how often you let things slide. And when you do push back, even gently, they use your original statement of full trust as a way to guilt you. Wow. After everything, you still don't trust me? That line isn't just deflection, it's a trap. It makes you feel like the unstable one, like your instincts are flaws instead of signals. Real trust is built with boundaries, not in the absence of them. You can believe in someone's potential without giving them unchecked access to your peace. You can love someone and still monitor their behavior. You can support someone and still protect your own clarity. That's not paranoia. That's self-respect. People who truly deserve your trust will never pressure you to prove it. They'll let it develop through action, not demand it through emotion. And if someone needs to hear, I trust you completely, to stay calm, that's already a sign you shouldn't say it. The goal isn't to withhold trust out of fear. It's to offer it with awareness. Trust becomes strong when it grows through time, repetition, and real alignment. But when given too fast, it becomes fragile, easy to break, and is often used against you. You can still lead with openness. You can still give people a chance. But never silence your intuition just to make someone else feel comfortable. That's not a connection. That's self-abandonment. In every relationship, whether personal or professional, there needs to be space between trust and total surrender. That space is where self-awareness lives. It's where you ask the right questions, not out of doubt, but out of clarity. Because once your peace is invaded, once your emotional energy is drained, it's hard to rebuild. Toxic people don't just want to be trusted. They want to be believed even when they lie. Don't give them that power. Trust should never come at the cost of your perception. If someone has to remind you that you said you trusted them, it's probably because they've done something to break it, and trust broken in silence is rarely repaired. Speak carefully, observe closely, and remember, you don't owe anyone blind belief. What you owe is the protection of your own truth. 5. It's all my fault. Carrying guilt that's not yours. You're in the middle of a heated argument. Your voice is calm at first, but the other person starts twisting your words, denying things you both know happened, blaming you for the reaction they caused. It escalates fast. You're emotionally exhausted, mentally cornered, and instead of fighting back, you just want it to stop. So you say the words that feel like a shortcut to peace. Fine, it's all my fault. You don't say it because you believe it. You say it to end the chaos. But what you don't realize in that moment is that with toxic people, this isn't a moment of surrender. It's a transaction, and you've just handed over something they'll use against you again and again. Guilt becomes a survival tactic when peace matters more than truth. When you deal with emotionally manipulative people, silence or agreement often feels like the only way out. But here's the trap. Toxic individuals don't see your surrender as compassion. They see it as a confession. They store that line, "You said it was your fault," and pull it out when they need to silence you later. The next time something goes wrong, they won't reflect on their own behavior. They'll remind you of the time you admitted it was all your fault. And because you've already trained yourself to take the blame once, it becomes easier to do it again. Now, guilt isn't just a tactic, it's a habit. This is where emotional self-defense becomes vital. You must recognize that healthy accountability is grounded in clarity, not self-erasure. You are absolutely allowed to take responsibility when you've made a mistake, but you're not obligated to carry the blame for someone else's choices. Toxic people are experts in blame shifting. They'll exaggerate your flaws, minimize their actions, and use your empathy against you. You'll find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, changing your tone to avoid upsetting them, and rewriting the story so they don't feel offended. And what happens over time is devastating. You begin to internalize that false guilt. You start believing that maybe if you were more patient, more forgiving, less reactive, things wouldn't always go sideways. That belief is poison. False responsibility is a silent destroyer of self-worth. It teaches you that your role in the relationship is to fix, to smooth, to absorb. And while you're busy patching the cracks in their behavior, your own foundation is crumbling. The more you carry guilt that doesn't belong to you, the more you lose connection with your own integrity. Your emotional boundaries collapse. You no longer know what's fair. You no longer know what's yours to own and what's theirs to face. That confusion is exactly what toxic people need to stay in control. They don't want resolution. They want emotional leverage. What makes this dynamic even more dangerous is how deeply it embeds itself into your identity. If you're repeatedly told that you're the problem, you start acting like the problem. You apologize more, speak less, and avoid conflict entirely. You suppress your anger, your sadness, even your joy. Because any strong emotion might trigger another guilt trip. And toxic people know this. They know that if they keep you in a cycle of emotional debt, you'll never walk away. You'll stay because you think you owe it to them. You'll stay because you think you're the one who needs to change. But clarity breaks the cycle. The moment you pause and ask, "Is this truly mine to carry?" That's the beginning of freedom. Emotional clarity helps you see that taking responsibility doesn't mean taking all of it. Some weight was never meant to be yours. You can say, "I regret my part," without absorbing the whole story. You can be accountable without being erased. And if someone refuses to share responsibility, that's not a relationship, that's control. Protecting your peace starts with recognizing when guilt has stopped being a signal and started becoming a weapon. Real peace doesn't require self-betrayal. It doesn't demand silence. It doesn't require you to lie about what happened just to keep someone calm. When someone tries to distort the story to make it all your fault, stay grounded. Return to. Because the moment you stop saying, "It's all my fault," and start saying, "This part is not mine," is the moment you reclaim your voice. And no toxic person can hold power over someone who finally sees the weight they never should have been carrying. 6. Maybe I'm just crazy. When you abandon your own reality. It never starts with shouting. It starts with something small, a moment where you recall something clearly and they say you're wrong. They smile and tell you that you must be misremembering. You hesitate, but you let it go. The next time you react to something that feels off and they say you're being too sensitive. Slowly, subtly, you start doubting your emotional signals. You begin wondering if you really are overreacting, if your memory is that unreliable, if your intuition has no ground. And one day, after a long string of small denials and dismissals, you say it out loud. Maybe I'm just crazy. You don't mean it. You're frustrated. But in saying it, you do something far more dangerous than you realize. You reinforce their version of you, a version they've been crafting all along. Toxic people don't gaslight you in one conversation. They do it over time, layer by layer, through countless micro-rejections of your truth. They question the way you feel, the way you remember, even the way you react to their behavior. And when you begin repeating those doubts to yourself, calling yourself crazy, irrational, dramatic, you're not just echoing their words, you're internalizing their narrative. You're adopting their filter over your own reality. And from that point forward, your emotional compass starts to spin without direction. You no longer trust what you see. You no longer defend what you know. And that's exactly what they want. Because once you disconnect from your internal clarity, you become easier to control. You second-guess yourself before you speak. You hesitate before setting boundaries. You stay in conversations longer than you should, not because you're weak, but because you're unsure. That uncertainty creates the perfect space for emotional manipulation to thrive. And the moment you say, maybe I'm just crazy, even in sarcasm or self-deprecation, you give them permission to ignore your reality altogether. It becomes their license to bypass your feelings, to dismiss your perception, and to rewrite your experience with their version of the truth. This is why gaslighting is so destructive. It's not just about lies. It's about confusion. It's about replacing your clarity with dependence. Dependence on their view, their judgment, their approval. It turns your inner voice into an unreliable narrator. You start looking to the very person hurting you to confirm if you're being hurt. You ask them if your pain is valid. You wait for their permission to feel what you already feel. That's how you abandon yourself. Not in one leap, but in small, consistent acts of doubt. But here's the truth. You're not crazy. You are reacting to a reality that someone else is working hard to erase. You are picking up on patterns they want you to overlook. You are sensing danger in behaviors they've normalized. And if anything, the fact that you feel disoriented means your instincts are still trying to speak. They haven't gone quiet. They've just been ignored. And now it's time to listen to them again. Because emotional clarity is your defense. It's the shield that keeps toxic people from rewriting your narrative. It's the force that helps you say, I remember what happened, I know how I felt, and I won't let you tell me otherwise. Mental manipulation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper, a constant undertone of, are you sure, that wears down your self-trust like water on stone. But you can rebuild that trust. You do it by pausing before you doubt yourself. You do it by writing things down when they happen, by checking your memory against evidence, by sharing your truth with someone grounded and safe. You reclaim your reality not by shouting louder, but by standing firmer. When someone tells you you're overreacting, you ask yourself, what do I know to be true? And you honor that answer, because it's not your job to convince others of your truth. It's your job to stop letting anyone convince you out of it. If you've ever found yourself whispering, maybe I'm just crazy, take a step back. Breathe. Ask where that thought came from. And if it leads back to someone who repeatedly ignores your feelings, invalidates your thoughts, and keeps you emotionally off balance, the problem isn't you. It's the environment conditioning you to doubt your own clarity. You don't need to argue. You need to return to your instincts, your memory, your sense of self. And once you do, there's not a single manipulative voice that can override the one you finally learned to trust again. Your own. 7. I just want you to be happy. The disguised self-erasure. I just want you to be happy. It sounds kind, selfless, noble. But sometimes those words don't come from strength. Sometimes they come from fear, the fear of being abandoned, rejected, or seen as selfish. Sometimes it's not really about the other person's happiness, but about your hidden hope that if they're happy, maybe they'll stop pulling away. Maybe they'll stop the coldness, the silence, the emotional control. You say it because you want peace, not necessarily because you believe that your own happiness matters just as much. And when said to the wrong person, those 8 words become something far more dangerous than they appear. They become a silent permission to vanish. Toxic people don't interpret your selflessness as love. They interpret it as weakness. They take your desire to please and turn it into a roadmap for control. Because when you say, "I just want you to be happy," you may be saying, "I'm willing to step back." But what they hear is, "You come first. Your comfort matters more. My needs can wait." And the more you offer yourself in pieces, the more they begin to expect it. Your thoughts get quieter, your presence gets smaller, your joy becomes optional, and suddenly you're no longer living a shared life, you're maintaining someone else's. This is the disguised danger of emotional self-erasure. It creeps in without announcement. You begin holding back opinions, not because they're wrong, but because you're afraid they might upset them. You stop doing things you love because they dismiss them as silly, pointless, or selfish. You suppress your boundaries because they always seem to take offense when you assert them. And all the while, you keep telling yourself that your sacrifices are proof of love. But love that costs your identity is not love. It's conditioning. Stoic philosophy reminds us that peace does not mean pleasing everyone. Peace comes from alignment with your values. And no relationship, romantic, familial, or otherwise, should ever require you to abandon yourself to maintain it. When you put someone else's emotional comfort above your own sense of truth, you create an uneven ground where only one person gets to exist fully. That's not balance. That's quite suffering. And toxic people prefer it that way, because silence is easier to dominate than resistance. What makes this dynamic more difficult to recognize is how easily it hides behind good intentions. You believe you're being compassionate. You believe you're avoiding unnecessary conflict. You believe that making them happy will eventually make the relationship feel safe again. But it never works that way. Because the more you erase yourself, the more invisible you become. And invisibility breeds resentment. You begin to lose the clarity that once defined your identity. You start wondering where you went when your joy disappeared. Why do you always feel exhausted after trying so hard to keep someone else satisfied? When you give someone endless emotional space while shrinking your own, they don't grow to appreciate it. They grow used to it. They believe it's your role. And if you ever stop, if you ever say, "I'm not okay," or "I need this to change," they look at you like you've betrayed the agreement. Because to them, the unspoken deal was, you stay small so they can stay comfortable. That's the silent contract you signed every time you said, "I just want you to be happy," and left your own happiness out of the equation. But love, real love, doesn't demand erasure. It doesn't reward silence or punish individuality. It doesn't ask you to trade your clarity, your energy, your voice, for temporary peace. Real connection respects emotional boundaries. It welcomes your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. It values your energy, even when it's not convenient. And most of all, it doesn't make your worth dependent on how much you're willing to disappear. So the next time those words come to your lips, "I just want you to be happy," pause and ask yourself what you really mean. Are you expressing support, or are you negotiating your own emotional existence again? Because someone else's happiness should never come at the cost of your self-respect. You are allowed to want peace and still hold your ground. You are allowed to love others without losing yourself. And most importantly, you are allowed to be visible, fully, unapologetically, and without needing to shrink to be loved. Toxic people don't just hurt you with what they say, they wear you down by how they twist what you say. That's why protecting your peace begins with protecting your words. Every phrase we explored today, from "you always" to "maybe I'm just crazy," seems harmless on the surface. But when spoken to someone who manipulates, these words become silent invitations to give up your energy, your clarity, and your emotional control. If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, confused, or doubting yourself, it's not weakness. It's a sign your emotional boundaries were crossed. Your instincts matter. Your truth deserves to be heard, not debated, not distorted. And your voice should never be used as a weapon against you. So speak with calm precision, protect your emotional energy, set clear boundaries. And when you find yourself in the presence of a toxic person, remember this: you don't need to react louder, you need to respond wiser. Let me know in the comments which of these phrases you've caught yourself saying or hearing. How did it change the dynamic? Let's talk about it below. And if this video helped you reclaim clarity, give it a like and subscribe for more Stoic self-defense strategies every week.